This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
Hi, good evening. This is the Easthampton City Council Ordinance meeting for May 21st, 2024. Thank you for being here. We're just gonna, are there any meetings that need to be? No, okay, that's fine. Great, the mayor's not here. Is there anyone here for public speak? Okay, great. So we'll just go ahead and start. So I just want to provide a little bit of feedback. I think what today we'll do is go over the specialized code, how it impacts various stakeholders, and then we will kind of have a discussion and try to answer any questions that we might have found or had or thoughts. Would be great. But I do, first of all, want to give an update. I reached out to the building inspector in Northampton, and they have approved the opt-in specialized code. And also in the back was, I believe, the city engineer, and so he was conferring with him also, just to be transparent. And I had asked them kind of how this has kind of been received by the community, and he said that there is grumblings from folks in terms of the cost, but some of it also, I think, was the stretch code and kind of making that transition. I did ask him what if there was a cost difference, and he said to do a mixed fuel option, it ranged between $30,000 and $60,000 more than an all electric. So that's
for how big of a, excuse me, I didn't mean to interrupt, but just for clarification, you said mixed fuel option 30 to 60,000 more for what level?
Whatever the
Just per
more
unit
than what it would be for all electric. And then with the all electric, there's a variety of different incentives that kind of, there is a cost, but to do a mixed fuel, it's significantly more, right? And some of that has to do with house back in the good old days. They used to do it was about 100 amperage, and then more modern houses, it's 200, and for an all electric or a mixed fuel, they're looking at 400. And so that's a large cost to that. And then of course the wiring. Let's say the house is all electric with the exception of a gas stove. They have to just have, to that particular appliance, they have to include a electric outlet to be able to, if that homeowner at any time in the future or the future homeowner wants to put in a gas range, they would have the electricity or the electric hookup already there, right? If they wanted to do hypothetically a range and a dryer, they'd have to do it for those two appliances. Right? So that was kind of a general conversation that he and I had about cost, etc. I also watched that video that you had sent, and it was clear that there were some costs, but then there were also incentives that around the passive house. There, like I said, there were, it sounded like from them, there were some costs, but their attitude was, this is the way of the future. This is the direction that we're going in. Yeah, that was kind of their commitment, I think, to kind of the future trend of passive house, all electric houses, etc. And they seem committed to that. So Anyone else have any conversations with anybody or?
So I talked to an architect, and I also talked to a builder who does a lot of residential, but also big scale commercial stuff for a lot of the colleges around. The architect was, didn't really seem to have a ton of concerns other than the fact that like even builders now can't build to hers 45, whatever I think they're building to 52, but then the next one is 45 and then it's 42.
Yep.
Says, yeah, they can't, like, they're just not able to do that right now. It's like, if we could just police them to get them to actually do that, it would accomplish almost all of the what we're trying to accomplish. He said passive house is probably a long shot of it actually being passive house. That was his take. The builder, was concerned about the costs and basically was like, this is going to price most people out of Western Mass if this goes like for new construction. That was his thought. And I think that he is friends with a builder in Northampton who's building a house right now. And he says that the last time he talked to him, because he's building one in Hatfield or something, like next town over, they compare notes and it's about 15%, like additional is what he found. That's the only two conversations I've had since we last met. I mean, I guess that just puts the one little bit of concern, because I'm fine to, I mean, I get that it's the way of the future. I get like electrified makes a lot more sense than anything else. I get spray foam sealing the house makes sense now that we have that technology. It's expensive, but I get that it makes sense. My concern is that as we look towards affordability, this is going to push us more towards like, it's going to make us look more like a Brookline or Cambridge, or just because those are the places where they have approved this. And I mean, we're looking at houses like a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. Is this guised gentrification? I don't know. I think it's worth us asking that question, I think, right now. But like I said, I'm not against it. I don't want us to do something that's going to have unintended consequences. So maybe we can figure that out somehow.
Yeah, it's the incentive part and the vagueness of that I think causes me the most pause, because if you look at different pockets of the city where there's older housing that would be more likely to have to be upgraded, I think in a lot of the pockets of the city in the past, when I've seen a lot of grants coming out saying, if you need to make different upgrades to your house, we can help with this for income. It was based on income, and then and so for something like this, I'm just wondering, with the incentives, would it be including incentives for people who otherwise would be costed out of this, be able to have this at a reduced cost, or any grants to help them with that? And if that's the case, even if it's the price point is what concerns me, because I don't want it to be that, well, sure, we can do this across the board, but actually have what you would have to spend, even if it's a 70% reduction in the costs, actually be really high to begin with. It's still not going to be feasible or reasonable. And so that's the part of the equation. Just hearing the carrot of knowing incentives are coming, but not knowing to what level those incentives are. Would it be to the city as a whole? Would it be to the builders? Would it be, you know, like who would be getting these incentives and who would benefit from them? Just, it's something I'm wondering.
And just as a point of clarification.
Yep.
So for home additions or alterations or things like that to the home,
Right.
those would be the same as the stretch code. That doesn't apply to the opt-in. And so
Yeah,
we're
I'm sorry, I
already
keep
under-
getting the language so confused.
Yeah, so I just want to make sure I'm understanding. If that's what you're talking about, we're already in that,
Mhm.
right? So, and I think that's where, even with our guests and things like that, which have been really great to have here, I think sometimes we blurred lines of when are we talking about stretch code and when
Sure.
we're talking about the opt-in. And so just for our conversation, I just want to make sure that if you're talking about home additions up to 1,000 square feet,
Mhm.
and alterations, those are stretch code and we're already in that right
Mhm.
now.
So because that's new, I haven't heard that yet. Which is a renovation over 1,000 square feet. That would trigger the specialized code?
That triggers
Or
the
the-
specialized code.
So I've never heard that.
Yeah, so that's what the builder said. I think that's what the DOER,
Is that,
DOER, I think it made a comment about that up to 1,000 square
is that
feet.
accurate?
I feel like, yeah, it's focusing on additions, not necessarily like remodeling, but like inside. If you're expanding the footprint, I feel like maybe that was the case. One of those infographics may show it.
Yeah,
The wonder, like, you
But I
know,
would say the FAQ, I think maybe speaks to that.
I just want to share my screen.
So down on the bottom to the left of the hand, that button is to share the screen,
Oh,
the
there, I
arrow.
was-
Yeah. You need to find the tab.
because if someone had like a single family ranch or a single level ranch, and they were like, oh, well, we have a big family, we want to add a level, that might easily be 1,000 square feet, you know, to make 1,000 square foot ranch, 2,000 square feet. And would that mean that they would have to make their entire house passive house and do solar? And I mean, because it almost seems like that would make a renovation or an addition that would add a layer of complexity that you'd have to do the whole house, I imagine.
I think it's just the addition,
Yeah, it's just the addition, so whatever.
whatever the
Really?
addition is
Are we-
being added on to, I don't think it affects what it's being added on.
Because it would be really, I mean, like, I'm not a builder, but I have done additions. You generally wouldn't have the ability to make one portion of your house passive house and the rest because the house is connected, the heating system's connected, everything's connected. So that doesn't sit with me.
So here's the thing.
Well, can you go to the FAQ?
Oh, sorry.
I think that talks about. Does it apply to existing structures? No, improvements to existing structures depending on size are regulated by the updated stretch code and base code. And so I think that's where the size piece came in, but I don't know if that number was 1,000 square feet.
Well, that's what the builder,
Okay.
the Northampton building inspector said. He said, and he conferred with the engineer who was behind him.
Okay.
Makes sense to me.
Except for 1,000 feet. And is that right? Is it? I thought, yeah, he said, yeah, it's 1,000 feet, right? So, and I feel like I said, I feel like they had said that in the meeting, but
I missed that part, I guess.
yeah, I mean, there was a lot of information coming at us, but, but that's home, right? That doesn't apply to my understanding of the addition that would go at Berry Street, right? If they're adding on to, even though it's the new structure is sizably larger than the structure there, it doesn't, there is no guidelines in the current code that determines that for the multifamily. Questions? thoughts, comments?
My thoughts really are between those two, doing things for the environment. And
Mhm.
so, of course, I believe in this in the long run. And the other part is unintentionally creating a real classist code in the city. And so it's
I'm just curious if Northampton had anything potentially to say about that, because they were one of the first to adopt in the early days. So I wonder if they've seen, maybe it's too early even still to say if they've seen any kind of trending like that or changes like that. I don't know.
He didn't say anything, but they do have some affordable housing that's going up that they're working with. When I speak with Jessica from, and I'm forgetting the acronym, but Valley CDC, she said, you know what, this is the way that communities are going. We're working in Amherst, we're working in some other communities that they're already looking at this. And so, right, so that I think continues to support the affordable housing aspect, right? And I think that that's an important piece of what we're looking at. Or when we started this conversation, that was an important piece of how are those projects going to be impacted.
yeah.
And it seemed like not at all. But,
So it seems to me that, you know, the affordable housing, might be the one segment of the building population that would not be adversely affected by this, because they, just from the work I did with the school reuse stuff, they are held to a higher standard anyway.
Mhm.
And they're getting incentives from the state and federal that offset all of the costs.
Yep.
But let's just say you're just a random Joe Schmo who doesn't have access to a team of grant writers and lawyers, and you want to, you know, improve a house in Easthampton, you know, not make it a mansion, but make it a decent house. Like, you're not going to have those resources.
Mhm.
And that could be, you know, just a normal person that maybe doesn't qualify for affordable housing, you know, because they're like, you know, 2-income house, or, you know, they're teachers or whatever, firemen, but they still want to, I don't know, that, like, there's like that, you know, we have affordable housing. I think it seems like this is probably not going to affect them as much, but there's that. I mean, that's because I think the builders are the ones that would get the credits, because they're the one, they're, you know, they're the ones that, so.
Doesn't seem fair.
But I think that's the way it would happen. I mean, you know, when you're building something and you buy a new refrigerator and you can get a rebate for it, you don't give it to the new homeowner to say, oh, you should get this rebate, right? You're gonna get money wherever you can, and you're probably not gonna pass that savings on if you're a business person. I don't know. The addition piece, I want to have more information about, like, a 1,000-foot addition to an existing structure. Does that mean they're gonna have to gut and the whole house and go to passive house? And because, and if not, like, why?
But it doesn't matter anyway, because it's the same as the stretch code.
No, but I mean, I guess maybe, but if, yeah, so maybe that is in the stretch code, because I don't see 1,000, I don't see it on the specialized code. But,
This is just.
the difference between stretch code and specialized code would be the difference between HERS 42 and passive house, right?
Only for some of them. So, for pre-wiring. It does not include passive house for residential low rise only.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what this infographic is for, only that type
So
of
this
home.
is the same as stretch code.
Yeah, and so for additions, yeah, it does seem to be that for the stretch code is what the piece that's gonna make that hard.
Right. So, but we're not talking about stretch code.
Right,
So
that
that's kind of a
already
moot
exists.
point. So,
But for the other types, which would be a mixed the larger multi-story residential, And then for commercial, which includes municipal, that's when you start including the passive house. For a new electric home, for a residential, it is to either be HERS 45 or passive house, but that would be with the existing stretch code that we have.
And if it's all electric, it stays at HERS 45 or
Yeah.
less.
Right. I mean, yeah, again, that's like you get bogged down in the difference between stretch code and specialized.
Yeah,
code.
yeah, I think that's where we're getting hung up, I think, a little bit.
Yeah.
I just want to say, Salem, there are tax credits and incentives and rebates for single family and people who are building their own houses. I mean,
Okay.
there is, you know, which once again, it doesn't really affect, the specialized code won't really affect them anyway.
Right.
But there are incentives, which not planning to build a house, I haven't looked into that extensively, but they definitely exist.
Yeah, I mean, I think my concern was if we were going to go specialized and it added a requirement for passive house over 1,000 square foot addition, that would be concerning to me. But if, you know, if that's just covered in stretch code and it's not part of this, then it's out of our purview. So, you know, no problem. I had a really good question and I forgot what it was.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sad now.
That's a really good one. Oh, okay. Well, this is a different one, but I can ask it if it's okay with you, Connie.
Okay.
Yep. Have we heard anything about what the potential benefits of adopting this are yet? Like, do we know? I mean, I know that it puts us in line for potential grants, but do we know what those potential grants could look like, what they could include? That would be really helpful, I think, for us to say, oh, well, you know, this is going to line us up for, they have earmarked $100 million for the communities that have like our energy leaders. And we're going to be in line to get a slice of that pie. And we can use it for, you know, renewable projects throughout the city, or we can hire, you know, a sustainability coordinator. That'd be so helpful to know.
HERS pathway and meet the HERS requirements for additions in table 1 above. Additions go under 1,000 feet will continue to follow base energy code.
It's for the stretch code.
This is for
2023 stretch
existing
code
buildings
clarifies.
alterations.
And this is stretch.
Yep,
Okay.
because underneath the next sentence says, the 2023 stretch code clarifies when alterations triggers compliance and requirements. These requirements are as follows. Stretch code, existing.
Okay.
For the benefits, the point that I was trying to make was that if we are able, this is one of the pieces of us making us eligible to become a climate, get the designation for a climate leader community. And that is the purpose of becoming a climate leader community, is that makes you in line to get that piece of that big pie that's going to be coming out.
Right.
The detail inside of that. My understanding from the informational sessions I've gone to with DOER is that the climate leader communities will be similar to that. They mentioned things like going for a sustainability coordinator, getting funding for a sustainability coordinator position, or similar, like just staff, but also more nuance to the type of grants, whereas the Green Communities Grant focuses on increasing energy efficiency in municipal buildings only, you know, because it's focused, being a green community is focusing on the municipal operations and buildings reducing their fossil fuel usage and fossil fuel emissions. So climate leader community, if you upgrade yourself to that, makes those grants available to
Right.
you. What I can't say is what explicitly, what would be the
What they
prescribed pieces, but it seems like it would be reasonable to expect it to include these kind of things.
I believe his name was Kevin.
Kevin, yes.
He had made a comment of, well, if you do this, then you're only gonna get affordable housing, state funding for housing. I don't know where I'm, in this particular moment right now, I don't know that that's a bad thing. Seems affordable, given the fact that we have a large Asian population. That creates more space for people who have to leave their homes, right? Because they can no longer take care of it, afford it, but we have housing then that they could hopefully move into and be able to stay in Easthampton, right? So that's important to me to be able to continue. But the other thing that I was thinking, our two friends from the DOER, they had made a comment about if you approve this and it doesn't work out, you can always rescind it, right? You can remove it, right? So there's that opportunity for it. The other thing to your point about people not being able to reach these, then that seems like a state problem, right? That they're going to have to make adjustments, work with builders to figure out, okay, what is the number that you can reach successfully right now? And then over time, as builders become more equipped to meet kind of growing technology standard or technology needs, or building technology as well as kind of standards, then hopefully the state would then work with them to be able to accomplish that and achieve that. And the other thing is, I think there's a really great opportunity for us right now to be able to be one of the first cities to be able to have this new designation, right? That would open up all sorts of opportunities for the city in terms of getting more grants and things like that, right? So I see those as potential opportunities. Okay, we're going to focus on continuing to build affordable housing within the city. So there's a trade-off there too, potentially.
So, I mean, I think a thought on that is, I don't disagree. I think affordable, I mean, that's been a goal since I've been on the council, is to create more. I think we have to also recognize the fact that we don't have a lot of open space that is fully buildable. So I think what it probably, and I'm, this is just, we're kind of like guessing what potential impacts are going to be. And I think my educated guess is that I don't think it's going to hurt super high end. I don't think it's going to hurt affordable. I think it's going to hurt the middle. I think it's going to hurt like, a regular person who is like wanting to build a house, but isn't. You know, I'm not, I wouldn't let that necessarily be the thing that kills it, but I think that it's something that should be acknowledged. It's not gonna hurt the super high end.
Mhm.
It's gonna hurt the middle person.
Sure.
And I also wanted to just, put out, you know, again, did we find out any clarity around implementation timeline? Because I said 18 months last time, and that wasn't one of the things that was listed. It was suggested 6 to 12.
They basically came to,
Thinking outside the box.
I know, right? So they basically came to the conclusion that, potentially Easthampton maybe could delay the implementation longer than 12 months, because they gave hold on. They gave their recommendation of 6 to 12. But if we want to remain eligible for the climate leader designation, they would not recommend us doing that. We probably would make us ineligible. We would have to wait until it came into effect and then we could go, because it's not really in the spirit of what they're trying to achieve for the climate leader designations. They said that they
6
have
to
to
12 is.
the 12
Okay.
is, so the maximum that we could do if we wanted to remain eligible for the first deadline in July to apply, assuming we could get it passed before then, to the motion to adopt, the implementation would need to be a maximum of 12 months away, somewhere between 6 to 12 months away. The minimum is as minimum as you want it to be, but we really probably couldn't go over to 12 months.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, which is an interesting question of, kind of to your point earlier, Connie, of if there is potentially, the state needs to figure out how to help these things. If we delayed the implementation to the 12 months, maybe that would give us a little time to see if the state does come out with something, because we know that this new stretch code changes are, no matter what we do today, will be implemented in July of this year. That might stir enough to make the state, again, this is all hypothetical and unsure, but could start stirring the state to focus on making those changes, increase the incentives. It feels like a lot of me trying to keep up and learn about all the incentives that are coming out and all the changes that the state is implementing and pushing for. And at the federal level, it's been happening fast and it's been changing a lot quickly. And if I remember correctly, Chris Mason at the last meeting indicated that he thinks there would be more incentives coming in the future. So for whatever that's worth, again, knowing that that's not a set in stone thing for me to say, it's just my opinion. So.
Well, it's on video.
I know. Well, it's just my opinion.
So Salem, I don't understand why the specialized code would have such a big effect on independent sort of middle people building in their individual homes. The stretch code certainly, I'm sure, is having an effect on people who are looking into building for themselves or hiring a contractor, but the specialized code doesn't really change anything.
Doesn't it make it passive house?
Well, this,
So the
Only if
current,
It's all electric,
But wouldn't you, oh, but that's not,
but if it's mixed fuel.
mixed fuel.
it's mixed
Oh.
fuels that it's much more expensive to build and would be more difficult for any builder or someone who wanted to build on their own. It is more expensive to build a mixed fuel. And
Yeah.
then one other thing I wanted
That's
to
just
say
fine.
is just keep in mind that these buildings are much more energy efficient and cost a lot more to heat and air condition. So as time goes on and as the assumption is mixed fuels will become much more expensive, there is that element in terms of thinking of costs. And there also is new research about the fact that when you're living in a mixed fuel house or an all fuel house, that you're living in an environment with a lot of toxic fumes all the time. And especially for people who have children, that is apparently, for people who are doing these studies, something to give serious thought to.
Because they're so sealed.
No, just any home that is using gas or oil to heat, gas to cook, it produces fumes that are just in your environment.
Oh, sure, but in newer homes, because the technology is so strong, they're really very much sealed, and which makes it even worse.
That may be, I don't know. I'm not sure that study, I don't know what that study was looking into.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, well, that's good, yeah.
Fair enough.
Other questions, thoughts? Folks on I'm going to assume no.
I think it does align with the whole notion of wanting to save our green spaces in the town. So I agree with that too. So that's all.
And I think the interesting piece coming back to is it is a lot less expensive to go all electric, right? So if you want your gas stove and you're going to contribute to increase climate impact on climate, then there's a cost for that, right? So
Well, and there's a moratorium in Easthampton for gas, so if you, and there has been for a long time. So you'd have to go with something like propane probably.
Yeah.
If you,
That most people are doing a lot of, yeah.
and a lot of places are banning gas stoves anyway. So just because of the fumes.
yeah.
Didn't our, what's the senior housing over here? Didn't they switch from gas to electric ranges? Or am I thinking of putting like I think instead they were putting, but within there, like a sprinkler system within all the hoods. So sorry, I just got confused for a second.
So they just said that they're having trouble hearing sometimes. Sure. Why?
Maybe this microphone isn't big enough if that's actually a microphone.
Or we might just
Figured
be
it.
talking loud enough. I'm not sure. And Omar, did you want to say anything?
No, but I would just want to, for the record, sometimes the microphone stopped working.
Okay.
So I don't know why. Right now it's working perfectly. Lindsay and I were communicating to each other because sometimes for any reason, I thought that was my computer. She thought that was her cell phone. Look like it is the microphone there. I don't know what it is. But sometimes we are capable to listen. Sometimes we're not. So.
So I'll just ask again then. Did either of you have any questions?
No, I do not at this moment. Thank you.
Okay. More questions here.
I would make a motion to move it approved to the full city council for consideration.
Okay, I have the motion right there if you want to.
Sure, I'd like to make a motion to move the specialized code motion to the full city council, where it's Easthampton City Council is to adopt the specialized energy code as found in 225 CMR 22 and 23, including appendices RC and CC in their entirety as the minimum energy code for the city, including future additions, amendments, or modifications thereto for the purpose of regulating the design and construction of buildings for the effective use of energy and reduction of greenhouse gas emissions to take effect on January 1st, 2025.
So the date I just put in it says, just to clarify, I just put that date in there. We can change that date. So
I would second that with the understanding that I would probably push for the 12-month implementation.
Yeah. Is there any way that we can codify into language that we would want to revisit this in a year to see if there was any? Because if we're saying, or are we just saying no? Like,
I mean, we could potentially make that part of the motion. It wouldn't necessarily mean much because this is adopting something
yeah.
other than the fact that it would be in the record,
So
right? So, I mean, like an ordinance is different because that goes into the ordinances, right?
Right.
So this is just adopting something. So we could say, we recommend that in a year we revisit this.
Okay.
So we have a motion and a second, and we've been discussing. So the question back to you is, can we find out what that year is? Can we reach out to Chris to find out what that year deadline would be? So that he's not thinking, oh, well, calendar year, or are we talking year from our adoption?
My understanding would be a year from adoption.
Okay,
That is how I would interpret it,
Okay.
but I can get clarity on that.
So it'd probably be July or June or something, like whatever our first meeting.
First.
Oh, or May 21st, yeah.
Although
Oh, no, I
actually.
think it would be from when the full city council
The full
decided.
city, the full city
Yeah.
council.
Yeah, so that would be
Fifth.
actually June,
I was gonna say,
June 20th, yeah.
What?
'Cause that's when we're gonna have our public hearing on this.
Okay.
Alright. So, I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Anyone online? No, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Alright, so, motion is approved. And in regards to the,
the farm manure.
yeah, manure, moratorium. I'm gonna reach out to, Counselor Kwasinski. He said he had some ideas. And I'd also like to reach back out with, a local farmer who knew about this, who knew some information about this and wanted to opine on it for a while. So I'm gonna reach back out to her and
A few seconds, call it. I don't know. I mean, it'd just be good to know, like,
Yeah.
yeah, I took a tour of the wastewater treatment. Lovely people. I recommend it. But I think it's every couple of days or something like that. Like a truck comes in and like takes away I think it's called cake or something.
Okay. And
I would
so,
think it- but-
and I'm sorry, Tamara, just a quick follow-up. So I think it would be good for us to know, A, do we sell it? B, do we give it away? C, if we don't sell it and we give it away, if we do this, is it gonna inhibit our ability to give it away, which would then, how much would that cost us?
Uh-huh.
I think that's like, as we look towards this, those are the three things that I would be interested in knowing.
So I'll reach out to, Director Nolan and kind of engage in those conversations, but,
Yeah, so I talked with a couple of biologists from my school about this, and they were saying that this is actually looking like it could be the wave of the future,
Yeah.
just because it wouldn't include animal crossover contamination within the waste stuff. And so it's just an interesting thing when we're looking at a lot of biohazard stuff that we hadn't considered in the past, like as another way forward. It looks almost like a public health issue where,
Interesting.
so, yeah,
With all the cows with bird flu right now,
right,
which they're
right.
finding in sewer treatment plants from humans.
and if it's used in soils that grow crops, like that contains antibiotics that people are taking.
Right.
All sorts
Opioids,
of
no, opioids don't, but other drugs can.
other drugs, so that's in your soil and that's like now in our food, right? And so there's all sorts of kind of concerns, questions, and just the general, but,
What's worse, glyphosate or glyphosate or antibiotics from sewage? I don't know, because we probably have it in our system right now, so.
we'll have a public hearing for it on June 20th. And so it'd be great if you could be there. I know we've discussed that. And then I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, great. Thank you so much.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.